Okay, we are live. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Don Clavin, and tonight is the public hearing on the proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club, which will be a joint public hearing between Hampshire Town Board, the Village of Lawrence Board of Trustees, and the Village of Woodburn Board of Trustees. In adherence to social distancing requirements, the two village boards are located in separate respective rooms within Town Hall. But utilizing technology, we can all see and hear each other in real time. And we can all be seen by the ladies and gentlemen who are watching from their homes. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Aye.
Councilman Boyle.
Here.
Councilman Carini.
Here.
Councilman Diaz-Padilla.
I'm here.
Councilman John.
Here.
Senior Councilwoman Guzzi. Here. Councilman Mozzarella.
Here. I will now turn it over to Mayor Edelman and the trustees of the Village of Lawrence.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Edelman. I'm the mayor of the Village of Lawrence. With me tonight, we have Trustee Kaufman, Trustee Diamond, Trustee Goldstein, and Deputy Mayor Fragan chose to recuse himself from this meeting.
I will now ask Councilman Blakeman to lead the town and villages. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Lawrence handing it over to Woodburn. Village of Woodburn, please go ahead. Village of Woodburn, please. Mayor.
Hello. Good evening. We would like to call the June 23rd, 2020 meeting of the Village of Woodsburg, which is now in session. Michelle, if you could call our roll.
Okay. Mayor Lee Israel.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Jay Carmen. Trustee Carl Kane.
Present.
Trustee Barry Platnick.
Present.
Trustee Alan Hermes.
Present.
We have Village Clerk Michelle Blandino. Present. Village Attorney Brian Stolar.
Present.
And Kathy Eisman of Nelson Pope and Boris. Present.
Okay.
Great. I'll now ask Councilman Blakeman and all of us to join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you can and join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please call the item on our calendar?
On item 1 of tonight's calendar is the proposed amendment of the building zone ordinance to add a new chapter 7B for the creation of a new zone district to be entitled the Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now let me explain the format of this public hearing. Because of the governor's executive orders, this public hearing will be conducted via teleconference using the GoToWebinar app and can also be watched through the town's live stream. The instructions for participating in the teleconference using GoToWebinar, as well as the pertinent documents regarding the zoning amendment, are on the town's Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club webpage. After the town and the villages have finished our brief introductory remarks, and the town's consultant, Cameron Engineering, will make their approximately 15-minute presentation on the proposed Coastal Conservation District. The town and the villages will then ask any questions they have of Cameron Engineering. When Cameron Engineering completes its presentation, the owner of the subject's property's attorney will make his comments. When the owner's attorney finishes his comment, the public who are waiting in the GoToWebinar test will have an opportunity to share their comments. Please note that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak. All participants will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Your name will be called by our moderator when it is your turn to speak, so please pay attention for your name. If you are participating in the GoToWebinar and watching on live stream, then you must mute the live stream when it is your turn to speak, or we will not be able to understand you. Every participant will be given one chance to speak. When you are done speaking or your time is up, the moderator will drop you from the meeting on GoToWebinar, and you can continue watching the board as well as the town's live stream. Please also note that anyone using profanity or straying completely off topic will be immediately dropped from the meeting by our moderator. Supervisor, before you continue, I would like the mayors or secretary of the two villages call their calendars on the items. Mayor of Lawrence, would you call your calendar and any item on your calendar?
You're calling a public hearing for the creation of the new
Sure. Village of Lawrence is calling the only matter on the calendar to add a new section 212-13.1 for the creation of a new zoning district to be entitled the Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club.
Thank you very much. Mayor of Village of Woodburg and your trustees, would you call anything on your calendar?
Yes, tonight in conjunction and collaboration with the town of Hempstead and the Village of Lawrence, the Village of Woodsburg is holding a public hearing regarding local law WDS 2003. Proposed local law WDS 2003 would amend the village zoning code to add for the creation of a new zoning district called the Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club, and amend the village zoning map to reclassify the Woodmere Club property from residences 1A and 2A to the proposed Coastal Conservation District. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm asking the residents to appreciate the efforts that all these municipalities have put together to conduct this hearing today, and I want to thank the mayors and trustees of each respective jurisdiction for helping and working with us to move this forward. This is an important, hearing that had to be held, and it's a credit to all of the municipalities working together, which I would expect every resident would hope they would be doing from day one, and they are clearly demonstrating here tonight. We are working together, as well as the social distancing policies we've all had to enforce, with our consultant Cameron Engineering, who will be making their representation. I will now ask Councilman Bruce Blakeman and Councilman Anthony D'Esposito and any other representatives of the area to make any remarks they may have. Councilman Blakeman?
Yes, Supervisor Craven and my colleagues on the town board, thank you so much for hosting this joint meeting, this historic joint meeting between the town of Hempstead, the Village of Lawrence, and the Village of Woodsburg. This has been a collaborative effort. We have a very large tract of land that is very important to the community. There are sensitive conservation, environmental issues, and traffic issues, flood zone issues, a number of issues that will be addressed tonight. And then at the conclusion of the hearings, I'm hopeful that we will all come to a mutual conclusion that will benefit all the residents in the area.
Thank you, Councilman Blakeman. Councilman D'Esposito, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you, Supervisor Craven, and my colleagues on the town board for making tonight possible. I also want to thank our co-workers here at the town of Hempstead, particularly the IT department, for making this collaborative effort possible, having us all under one roof. And this really has been a joint effort between the town of Hempstead, the Village of Lawrence, and the Village of Woodsburg. And this is a perfect example of good government at work. We're here to preserve our community's character, preserve our environmental resources, and really look for the best interests of the five towns. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor of Lawrence, if you would like to have any introductory remarks, or any of your board members, I would please ask you to do so. And again, thank you, Mayor, and again, all your trustees for being here and helping us put this together.
Alex Edelman, Mayor of Lawrence. Also, I wish to emphasize the same thing as well as Councilman Esposito put it so eloquently, and I want to second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. And now I would like to extend the same courtesy to the Mayor of Woodsburg and thank him and his entire board and the staff there for working with us. Mayor, is there any comments you would like to add or statement?
Good evening. Thank you. A copy of the law being considered tonight has been made available for review and download on the village website since mid-May. Prior to the board's scheduling of tonight's public hearing, the Village of Woodsburg hearing is being held in accordance with the governor's executive orders and being conducted in a manner provided in the hearing notice that was published and posted. Additional notice for the meeting was also provided to the residents by email, and the village website has provided the manner in which any interested person may participate in the hearing, with specific participation instructions. To date, the village has received comments from over 400 people, and tonight any interested person may also state their comments. The number of comments, while impressive, is secondary to the substance of what has been written, and I would note that many of those comments are consistent with the findings, goals, and objectives contained in the village's comprehensive plan and the purpose for which this board is considering the proposed coastal conservation district. I wish to stress that the proposed local law is not a standalone action. Firstly, the board recognizes its need to serve as environmental stewards to protect the village and its residents and to ensure a future despite environmental and climate pressures. However, this is not something that we can do alone. Along the coast, we may share geographical borders with other municipalities, but our problems and concerns, as well as our obligations to protect our environment, our community, and to preserve our continued sustainability, are regional. If we bind ourselves by the lines on a map, we will restrict our ability to govern. Our future will be tied by those map lines. The environment does not care about our municipal boundaries. Climate change and sea level rise are not bound by borders. Our shared resources know no municipal boundary limits. So why should our decisions to protect and preserve our resources be limited based on borders? So for this very reason, we are not acting alone. We are acting on a collaborative fashion with the town of Hempstead and the village of Lawrence, and I am proud to call Hempstead and Lawrence our partners in this endeavor. I believe it is evident to all of us as partners that comprehensive and regional action is required. Were we to segment our thinking on our own individual concepts, our efforts, vision, and interests, protecting our region, our residents, and our community, and our future, and our way of life would be wasted. We have a shared burden and a shared responsibility. My board and I commend the town leaders and the village of Lawrence leaders. Your foresight and passion allow all of us to rightfully and admirably serve our respective positions as environmental stewards. I previously stated that the local law does not stand alone for two primary reasons. The second reason is that the village board and I have recognized for some time now that the original zoning laws, which previously have been static and unresponsive to change, did not contemplate 2020 and beyond. They do not consider impacts from sea level rise or climate change, phrases that had no meaning when these laws were created. My administration several years ago began to think about steps that must be taken to address potential environmental impacts, resource impacts, flooding, storm, and climate change impacts. We engaged a planning and environmental consultant to review potential impacts relating to portions of the Woodmere Club property. We engaged another consultant to review potential build-out of the village and the consequences of that build-out. We authorized the preparation of a comprehensive plan. After nearly a year of study and analysis and significant public input, we accepted and adopted a comprehensive plan in December. We agreed to work with the town of Hempstead and the village of Lawrence on addressing zoning issues across our boundaries, which ultimately resulted in the proposed respective coastal conservation districts. We have moved forward on various goals, objectives, and visions contained in the vision plan. Among those is the proposed local law. Our consultant is presently working on modifications to our laws to address other sensitive coastal properties using a cluster form of development to provide proper protections from environmental impact. So this proposed local law is far from a standalone action, but rather one of many that the village has already put into action and is continuing to work on. We cannot stop until we are all comfortable knowing that we have done everything possible to preserve Woodsburg, which we hold so dear. As we sit here in our respective clusters tonight for health and safety reasons, together our partners, we seek to achieve an appropriate balance. A balance between development and the health and safety of the village residents, and a similarly impacted region. Our goal is to implement a zoning plan that preserves our community and protects us from the ravages of the coastline. We certainly recognize this is a delicate balance. However, it is our obligation to serve the people in our village, act in a manner consistent with the visions, goals, and objectives of our community, as outlined in our comprehensive plan, and also recognize the rights of property owners. It is those considerations that we have proposed the Coastal Conservation District, and we appreciate the comments already submitted, and we look forward to additional input from interested parties tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayors of both communities, and I appreciate again everybody working. I will say, if I could just give a reminder to all the officials when we are speaking, if we could just speak it in a louder voice, so we can make sure that everyone can hear us properly. It could be transcribed.
and everyone can be able to ascertain what is being said. I appreciate it. With that, I am now going to turn this over to hear from Cameron Engineering. That's the gentleman who seems like he's in the isolation chamber, but he's not. He's an active participant. So I'd like to now turn it over to Cameron Engineering.
Thank you, and good evening, Supervisor Clavin, town board members, Mayor Edelman, and trustees for the Village of Lawrence, Mayor Israel, and trustees for the Village of Woodsburg. My name is Kevin McAndrew, partner with Cameron Engineering, 177 Crossways Park Drive, Woodbury, New York, engineering and planning consultants for the town associated with the proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club Zoning Initiative. Also with me here this evening is David Tepper, lead environmental planner from Cameron Engineering. I want to preface our presentation to emphasize that this hearing and presentation is not a hearing on the owner's development plan, the Willowview Estate subdivision application. Our presentation for this public hearing is associated with a proposed zoning initiative that will supersede the owner's development plan. I'm going to share my screen at this point in proceeding with our PowerPoint presentation. On behalf of the town, Cameron Engineering, in coordination with the Village of Lawrence and the Village of Woodsburg, the village's planning consultant, Nelson Pope and Voorhees, has prepared a comprehensive environmental and planning report for the Woodmere Club property. I will refer to the expanded environmental assessment report as the expanded EA in this presentation. The expanded EA, dated May 2020, is posted on the town's website. I will narrate a series of slides which will cover a brief background and introduction of the proposed Coastal Conservation District zoning initiative, a snapshot of existing conditions, and the significant vulnerability of the Woodmere Club under the town's existing zoning, and an overview of the proposed zoning, including the key mitigating environmental measures and benefits associated with the Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club property. In the months of November and December of 2019 and 2020 of this past January, an intermunicipal cooperative agreement was adopted by the town of Hempstead, the Village of Lawrence, and the Village of Woodsburg. This agreement facilitated a highly coordinated planning study which guided the formulation of the proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club zoning code. The intermunicipal cooperative agreement recognizes the regional significance of the Woodmere Club property, including its unique environmental attributes, its natural mitigating function, and its contribution to local community character. The Woodmere Club is approximately 118 acres, with approximately 55 acres in the unincorporated area of the town of Hempstead, approximately 23 acres in the Village of Lawrence, and approximately 40 acres in the Village of Woodsburg. The boundary of the property and the municipal jurisdictions are shown on the aerial photo to the right side of the slide. With the Woodmere Club spanning 3 municipal jurisdictions, the coordinated and collaborative approach to the zoning regulation of the property provided the opportunity for the most meaningful proposal with the underlying purpose and intent to regulate development in this environmentally sensitive coastal area, allowing for the enhanced preservation and protection of the towns and neighboring villages' environmental, coastal, open space, and cultural resources. There are numerous existing environmental and physical conditions with the Woodmere Club property that will affect the future development of the property and the protection of its key physical attributes and their natural mitigating function. Within the expanded EA, Cameron Engineering performed the build-out analysis under the existing residence fee zoning 6,000 square foot density. Our development yield analysis effectively matched the proposed Willowview Estate subdivision map currently before the Nassau County Planning Commission, with 285 development lots, approximately 244 of 6,000 square foot lots within the 55 acres of the town, and another 41 lots within the Village of Lawrence and Woodsburg, for a total of 285 lots. The proposed 285-lot Willowview Estate subdivision map is the image depicted on this slide. In a sensitive and vulnerable low-lying community, the impact of climate change is a critical environmental issue, as changing climate has already taken shape and continues to evolve in the form of sea level rise, more frequent and intense storms, and extreme flooding. Development regulations and land use laws must address future environmental conditions, including the greater risk of coastal flooding, the loss of open space, and its mitigating functions, traffic impacts on the local road network, visual impacts, increased costs of municipal services, all of which directly correlate to community character and the overall quality of life for the surrounding residents and community at large. The environmental analysis detailed in the expanded EA underscores the vulnerabilities associated with the build-out under the existing zoning and the clear inadequacy of the existing zoning to appropriately regulate development. This is most pronounced in the town's Residence B 6,000 square foot zoning. The expanded EA provides detailed environmental analysis with compelling data justifying the need and purpose for the proposed zoning approach. A coordinated zoning approach that is responsive to reducing and mitigating the significant potential adverse impacts with the future development of the Woodmere Club property. The numerous potential adverse environmental impacts are listed on this slide. To further expand upon just a few, climate change and sea level rise. The expanded EA models projected New York State DEC sea level rise impacts for the property and surrounding community. The results show tangible adverse impacts will continue to be experienced at increasing frequencies for the local community. Floodplain management. In low-lying flat areas, the floodplain provides a valuable function by storing floodwaters. This is the natural function of the Woodmere Club property today and has been for over the past 100 years. When properties are filled, the flood storage is lost and the floodwaters are dispersed into surrounding areas. The proposed Willowview Estate subdivision proposes filling the property by up to 11 feet, a total quantity of approximately 250,000 cubic yards of fill. The potential impact was modeled in the expanded EA with the findings that approximately 45 million gallons of floodwaters would be displaced off the property. A detailed traffic impact study was performed and is included as part of the expanded EA. A few key findings. Under the current zoning, the 285 single-family homes would generate over 2,700 daily trips. The volume of added traffic would represent almost a 20% increase to the daily volume on Broadway. Peak weekday hourly volumes, which would occur between 4 and 6 p.m., would generate approximately 282 trips, or 265 trips on a Sunday peak hour. I previously referenced potential flooding impacts associated with the large-scale filling of the property. There are additional traffic-related impacts associated with importing fill. The filling of the property with approximately 250,000 cubic yards of fill would translate to many thousands of heavy construction truck vehicles continuous every day over many months. An analysis for the development of the property under the existing zoning compared to the proposed zoning is a key focus within the expanded EA. For example, the bar graph on this slide compares one specific environmental condition associated with daily traffic. Under the proposed zoning, daily traffic will be reduced between 70 to 78% with the proposed zoning. The proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club provides the land use and zoning mechanism to regulate the entire property as a whole, enabling the opportunity to reduce and mitigate the potential for fill-induced local flood impacts, addressing climate change and sea level rise, traffic impacts, and related environmental vulnerabilities. The coordinated approach for the Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club was formulated with the key goal of the town and villages serving as stewards of the environment and preserving the community's safety, health, and welfare against severe potential adverse impacts on this unique, environmentally sensitive area. The specific land use and zoning approach was guided by conservation subdivision principles and low impact development principles, responsive to the challenges of climate change, sea level rise, floodplain management, open space preservation, and community character. The overarching planning and land use approach for the Coastal Conservation District is the creation of 3 distinct sub-districts regulating the property. The 3 sub-districts are delineated on the zoning exhibit to the right side of the slide. The most significant being the open space recreation sub-district, colored in the light green. Representing 70% or 83.3 acres of the overall property, the open space recreation district provides expansive and continuous open space around the entire perimeter of the property, on average, approximately 280-foot dimension, and the complete preservation around the Woodmere Channel area other than the existing clubhouse improvements to remain. The open space is responsive to the potential impacts previously referenced: floodplain management, climate change, ecological habitat preservation, and community character. Within this open space area of 83.3 acres, permitted uses will be limited to passive parkland, such as walking trails and nature observation areas, or a golf course use. The open space was studied in the expanded EA to demonstrate the viability of a regulation-sized 9-hole golf course with practice areas. The maintenance and protection of this open space is regulated through tree protection, the limited ability to add fill or change natural grade, and the town's underlying property maintenance code. Well buffered and sited within the interior of the property are 2 areas shaded tan on the zoning map exhibit, designated as single-family residential sub-districts. Approximately 25% or 29.4 acres of the overall property. The area within the town is approximately 19.3 acres, and 10.1 acre area splits between the village of Lawrence and Woodsburg. The conservation cluster approach will allow for approximately 59 single-family homes, 41 within the town and 18 within the villages. The 41 lots within the town area are based on a development yield and density analysis of 1-acre sized lots. This density of 1 acre is both consistent and compatible with the existing zoning of the adjoining villages of Lawrence and Woodsburg. I will speak further to the single-family sub-district on the next slide. The third sub-district is the Clubhouse Hospitality Sub-District, approximately 5.7 acres and entirely within the village of Woodsburg portion of the property, encompassing the existing clubhouse, tennis, swimming pool area, and parking areas. This sub-district was designed to preserve the existing historic clubhouse and its associated hospitality services. It will be regulated by the village of Woodsburg for hospitality uses consistent with current use and with the allowance of up to 15 overnight guest suites. The 2 photos on this slide provide representative precedent imagery of luxury single-family homes in a conservation cluster development consistent with the planning approach proposed within the Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club. Minimum lot size within the town single-family residential cluster area will be 12,500 square feet. Within the villages, the minimum lot size will be 15,000 square feet. An important provision within the proposed code is allowing for home sizes that are consistent with 1-acre zoning. Within the town, allowable home sizes will be 7,500 gross square feet on a 12,500 square foot lot. Within the villages, 11,000, 2,000 gross square feet on a 15,000 square foot lot. It is important to clarify that these homes will be adjacent to the expansive open space area and well buffered from adjoining homes and streets. The proposed code incorporates a set of sustainable design regulations for individual lot development guided by low-impact development principles. These include the requirement of permeable pavement surfaces for driveway and terraces to to reduce stormwater runoff and provide localized stormwater management. Each building lot will provide for additional on-site collection, storage, and recharge of stormwater beyond the requirements of the Nassau County subdivision regulations. Use of green infrastructure, such as rain gardens and bioswales, is incentivized with additional design credits provided for in the code. The requirement of automatic irrigation systems with smart controller technology, including rain and soil moisture sensors, to reduce potable water usage and minimizing saturated soils to have optimal stormwater leaching capacity. The proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club will better align the town zoning regulations with existing state and federal environmental principles. The proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club recognizes the unique environmental conditions that affect the Woodmere Club property. The proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club provides measures to reduce and mitigate significant potential adverse impacts. The proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club has been designed in a coordinated manner with the villages of Lawrence and Woodsburg to preserve community character. The color plan rendering on this slide is a representative build-out under the proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club. In this rendering, the open space subdistrict is depicted with a 9-hole golf course layout with 59 single-family homes, 41 in the town and 18 in the villages of Lawrence and Woodsburg. The clubhouse and amenities are shown as they exist today. The proposed Coastal Conservation District Woodmere Club is a more sustainable residential zoning district that will provide for contextual single-family development that is far more responsive to environmental, ecological, cultural, and physical conditions. Mr. Supervisor, this concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Does anyone from the town board have any questions for Cameron Engineering?
I don't have a question. I just want to reiterate to everyone, both in this chamber, the two villages, and everyone listening at home, I just want to reiterate the fact that this presentation that Cameron just put forward is in regards to a zoning change. This is not in regards to approving any sort of building or any sort of development. This is simply about zoning.
Supervisor, I would just like to thank Cameron Engineering and the village engineers, Nelson and Pope, for an outstanding presentation which highlights some of the very, very important issues resolving this property.
Thank you. I will now turn it over to the Village of Lawrence for any questions they may have.
No, we don't. We thank you for your eloquent representation. Alex Edelman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, trustees. I will now turn it over to the Village of Woodburg for any questions or comments.
My board have any questions or comments they'd like to bring up?
All
right. We also we have no comments at this time, but we'd like to thank Cameron Engineering and Nelson Pope and Voorhees for an outstanding effort and a very thorough and detailed analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees and board. We will now hear from Chris Brown, the attorney for the property owner.
Hold on 1 second.
Hold on 1 second, please.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Try to pass. All right, Mr. Brown, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
You can hear me, correct?
We can hear you, sir.
All right. Good evening, supervisor, mayors, members of the boards. My name is Christian Brown. The law firm Son Ward Coscignano, PLLC, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Suite 601, Uniondale. I am the attorney for the owners of the Woodmere Club. Briefly, I'd like to thank Mr. Kovid and Mr. Regina for arranging our ability to easily make our comments tonight. And I'd like to read a statement a copy of which I provided to Mr. Regina and Mr. Kovic earlier today on behalf of my clients. To the members of the board, as I noted, this law firm represents the owners of the Woodmere Club, which is the only property that will be affected by the adoption of the proposed ordinances that are before these combined boards at this public hearing. When each municipality introduced its respective version of the ordinance, I sent correspondence to the town and the two villages on the owner's behalf, informing the town board and the boards of trustees that the owners oppose the proposed rezoning, which would make any development of the property virtually impossible, and explaining the basis for the opposition. I respectfully request that the boards assembled here this evening mark my correspondence to each of them. To Hempstead, dated May 20th, 2020, Woodsburg, dated June 3rd, 2020, and Lawrence, dated May 21st, 2020, into the record, and I can provide copies to Mr. Regina and Mr. Kovic again if necessary. The proposed ordinances are an attack on the owner's fundamental property rights and are replete with other legal flaws, both substantive and procedural. If the boards vote to adopt the ordinances, the owners will have no choice but to challenge vigorously in court the enforcement of the ordinances, and they will seek damages against the villages and the town as warranted by law. To be clear, the entire process related to the ordinances, including the environmental analysis on which the boards rely, constitutes an improper and illegal action against my client's property rights. I also note that the adoption of these proposed ordinances comes in the midst of a 2-year-long environmental and subdivision approval review led by the Nassau County Planning Commission. As part of that process, the owners have prepared and filed an exhaustive environmental report on the proposed subdivision plan. The town and the villages are, by law, part of the environmental review process. Yet the boards are proceeding with the adoption of the proposed ordinances instead of participating in the process that the law provides for subdivision review. It is unfortunate that the municipalities have chosen their present course, but it is not too late to abandon these draconian ordinances and instead take a more reasoned approach to the development of the Woodmere Club that respects the rights of all stakeholders. In fact, the public should know that contrary to what they may have heard from various elected officials, from the time that the owners acquired the club, they have sought dialogue with village and town officials, hoping to craft collaboratively a plan for the future of the club. But these efforts were uniformly rebuffed. The owners have repeatedly, publicly in the press and on the record at public meetings and in other forums, expressed their willingness and desire to meet and work reasonably with public officials. But not a single member of the town board has met with the owners or taken the time to review a series of alternate plans, all produced at the owner's expense, for the development of the club, despite both public and private invitations to do so. The only meeting that took place at the town occurred last year when we met with the former supervisor and her staff, along with representatives of the 5 Towns Civic Association. We presented the former supervisor and the leadership of the Civic Association with a potential development plan for review. That plan was also the subject of the local newspaper stories. However, following the meeting, we received no comments, and with the change in administration at the town, all efforts at dialogue on the part of the town ceased. To be clear, neither Councilman D'Esposito nor Councilman Blakeman has met with the owners of the club or their representatives. The owners made similar overtures to the villages. Mayor Edelman of Lawrence promised on the record that he would meet with the owners before Lawrence took any action related to the club. No such meeting ever occurred. Mayor Edelman and Mayor Israel of Woodsburg have simply refused to meet with the owners despite repeated efforts on the part of the owners to schedule such a meeting. While the owners have repeatedly invited village trustees to participate in discussions and to comment upon possible development plans, no trustee has ever accepted that invitation. Worse still, various elected officials have claimed that because the town and the villages expect to be sued for their actions related to the club, that those officials are unable to enter into any discussions with my clients to explore reasonable development options. But that is simply not the case. Cases frequently settle during litigation as a result of discussion between the parties. Settlement discussions may never be used to prejudice the position of any party in litigation. I wish to state for the record that my clients have always been ready, willing, and able to enter into such discussions and to treat any such discussions as privileged so that they cannot be used in any court proceedings against the town or the villages. We will meet at any time that is convenient for town and village officials, and of course, with the understanding that all such discussions are to be treated as confidential settlement communications. In summary, the adoption of these ordinances will not benefit the owners of the club or the public. It will leave my clients with no choice but to seek assistance from the courts. Litigation over this matter will undoubtedly cost the town and the villages millions of dollars in legal fees and expenses. If the boards adopt the ordinances and the courts strike them down, as we believe they will, we expect the taxpayers in the town and the villages will see dramatic increases in property taxes, as the owners will seek damages against the town in an amount exceeding $140 million, against Woodburg in an amount exceeding $40 million, and against Lawrence in an amount exceeding $25 million, along with the recovery of the owners' significant legal fees and costs. The adoption of these ordinances, therefore, would be equivalent to a $200 million gamble with taxpayer money. The ordinances are unlawful, and we believe they will be annulled in court on substantive and procedural grounds. But there is a better way forward. We urge the town and the villages to reject these proposed ordinances and to pursue instead a constructive and good faith effort that can result in a development plan for the club that will benefit all the stakeholders, the town, the villages, their residents, and the owners of the club. I thank the boards for listening, and I hope you'll take our comments into consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Before we proceed with public participation, I'm going to ask Charles Covitt to say a few words.
Thank you, Supervisor. I am Charles Covitt, Chief Deputy Town Attorney, and I would like to respond to some of the contentions that were raised by Mr. Brown, the attorney for the owner. Firstly, I'd like to assure the town board and the village boards as well that these hearings, or this combined hearing, is being conducted strictly in accordance with applicable provisions of the New York State town law and analogous provisions of the village law. Secondly, it is true, and it is indicated very well by Mr. Brown's remarks, that there is a threat ongoing during the progress of this hearing to bring legal action. Based on those remarks, it is my advice to the town board, and I believe that the village attorneys will feel the same, that we will be vigilant and very circumspect in making sure that the hearing of this matter does not in any way devolve into a debate as to the merits of such an action. That would be completely improper, an improper forum, and there will come a day, if they carry through with their threats, for us to establish our legal position, which I believe is absolutely correct, defensible, and of course, at the end of the day, if it is adopted, in the best interests of the people who are most involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Covitt. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed with the public participation.
We'll ask the villagers if they have it.
Before we proceed with that, I apologize. Mayor of Lawrence and the board, do you have any questions or comments?
None, thank you.
Same here.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and trustees of Woodsburg, do you have any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you both. Now we'll proceed with the public participation and go to webinar. I'm going to ask you to please listen carefully to your team. And the moderator now take over and begin the process. Moderator.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you, village boards. And just a reminder to all the participants, at the end of your comments or at the end of the 3 minutes, whichever comes first, you will be dropped from the webinar meeting, and you will be able to continue watching the meetings of the three boards on the Town of Hempstead's live stream on the Town of Hempstead website. So again, please listen for your name, and you will be unmuted
as your name is called. The first participant, supervisor, mayors, members of the boards, is Abraham Muchnick. I hope I pronounced that right. I apologize. Abraham Muchnick, you are on. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. As a direct neighbor to the Woodmere Club, the only other property bordering the coastline, I wish to offer my perspective at today's hearing. I have serious concerns that allowing construction at the scale proposed in the developer's plans. Excuse me, sorry. I have serious concerns that allowing construction at the scale proposed in the developer's plans will result in irreversible damage to the fragile ecosystem. Over the last 4 years, my children and I have been making regular kayak trips to clean the channel coastline and surrounding wetlands of pollution. We've made a dent in removing the number of debris and see more native wildlife in the area now than when we first began our efforts. Lengthy development, scale construction, noise, and pollution from windstream debris will make the area untenable for shorebirds and the many native animals that make their home in the area, including blue herons, egrets, ospreys, yellow-crested night herons, and more. The last 4 years, we've seen a marked return of horseshoe crabs that used to use this area as an annual mating grounds decades ago, but disappeared largely due to pollution. Woodmere Channel is one of a handful of natural jewels in the Five Towns area, and protecting its wildlife and the coast that protects them is critical to maintaining its authenticity and longevity. I urge the committee to proceed with a plan to protect the coastal area by minimizing construction impact and applaud your efforts in this regard. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Muchnick, again, we're going to drop you now from the webinar meeting, and we encourage you to continue watching on the Town of Hempstead live stream. Okay. Supervisor, mayors, members of the boards, Abraham Muchnick is the second name in the queue. I don't know if that's a different person in your home or not. Mr. Abraham Muchnick again?
Same person, you can skip me, sorry. I was watching on two screens.
Okay, so we're going to drop you, sir. Okay. Members of the board, the next speaker is Adam Greenberg. Mr. Greenberg, please go ahead.
Oh, that was the one. That wasn't even.
Mr. Greenberg, could you please turn down either your phone volume or a speaker volume? Mr. Greenberg, again, please turn down your speaker volume where you are. Okay, Mr. Greenberg, we're not trying again. If you want to try to rejoin the meeting, sir. Okay. The next person in the queue is Avi A. Avi A, please go ahead. Avi A. All right. The next person in the queue is Betty Lerman. Ms. Lerman, please go ahead. Ms. Lerman? All right. Ms. Lerman, we're going to drop you from the webinar meeting. The next person is Brandon Margolis. Brandon Margolis, please go ahead.
Hi, you're able to hear me?
We're able to hear you, sir.
Okay, good. I think probably some of the people didn't realize they were going to speak. I think, I appreciate the eloquent representation of those selected by our municipalities to, again, represent a position which is very important here. I think that without getting into the scientific evidence, which will leave at their behest, as well as the legal representation, anyone can see just walking through this area that the environmental impact would be astronomical. Whether it be talking about some of the animals that were mentioned, the flood waters that we can see build up on a simple rainy day, or the traffic, which impacts truly the lives of those who live here from a safety perspective, from an emergency evacuation perspective. These natural resources must be preserved and cannot be ignored. So I fully support our municipality's decisions to stand strong here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Margolis. The next person in the queue is B-I-C-H.
I didn't ask to speak.
B-I. Hello?
I didn't ask to speak.
B-I? Oh, okay. All right. The next person in the queue is David L. Kuby. Mr. L. Kuby, go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Let me just lower the volume. I would like to thank the board for the efforts on this conservation district. I very much support it. But I do have a question towards the board. I don't know if it's something that can be answered at all. The attorney for the developer alleges that he reached out to the mayors requesting for a meeting, and the mayors had turned him down. And I think everybody who's listening would probably want to know why they never met with the developer. And that was my comments.
This is Charles Covet, and while you asked a very pointed question, I believe that is not in the best interest of the town or the villages to characterize any of the allegations made by Mr. Brown. If he carries through with his threat, he'll have every opportunity to assert it, and he will be put to his proof. There is nothing to be gained by any of the municipal actors to make ad hoc comments or characterizations about the substance of what might have or might not have been said or done at any hearings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person in the queue is David Safra. David Safra, please go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you very much. I just wanted to say I appreciate our legislators' diligence and forethought in creating the intermunicipal cooperation agreement for the betterment of all the Five Towns area. Also would like to say that I fully support the proposed legislation to create a coastal conservation district overlaying the entire 118 acres of the Woodmere Club. The plan is both rational and forward-thinking, so eloquently put forth by Mayor Israel and Mayor Edelman, as well as put in bullet point sections in the Cameron study. It is clear that this proposed plan aligns with the zoning with the existing state and federal principles. It recognizes the unique environmental concerns that face all of us here. It proposes mitigation measures also for proposed adverse impacts. And last but not least, it's responsive to the environmental, ecological, cultural, and physical conditions of the area. And for that, we thank you for listening to the people who live here and undertaking the study in order to ensure that what needs to be done can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saffer. Members of the board, I believe Nassau County Legislator Howard Capel is the next person in the queue. I don't know if he's just watching or if he wants to speak. Legislator Capel, you have the floor if you'd like to speak. Legislator? No? Legislator, can you hear us?
I hear you. I don't know if you...
Legislator?
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know if you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good.
We do, sir. Legislator, go ahead.
I applaud the efforts of the Town of Hempstead Board as well as the boards of the two villages of Lawrence and Woodsburg. I think that you all work very hard. would like to say that.
Legislator, you cut out on us.
You don't hear me anymore? Hello?
Legislator, go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you hear me still? Okay. I do want to say that I think that the plan developed by the developers here have no respect for the wishes of the community at all. It's just they simply look for profit. The very notable that the statement by the developers does not seek to dispute the key findings by the engineers, which is terribly important, critically important. The traffic would be a disaster over here. The coverage of the land would be a disaster over here. I would also note that I personally offered to speak with the developers several times. They were once actually in my office. I tried to follow up. They never bothered to return my phone calls, which gives the lie to their assertion that they are trying to engage in community outreach. In short, I applaud what you're all doing over here. I think it's the right move. I think it's a move that respects the needs and desires of the community. And I certainly hope it follows through. You take the vote, it passes, and I think this is the right way to go. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Legislator Capel. The next person in the queue is David Simon. No, David. No, I'm sorry, David Simon is not here with us. Wait, hold on. Mr. Simon, can you hear us? David Simon? David Simon? All right. The next person in the queue is Erica Muchnick. Erica Muchnick, if you'd like to speak, go ahead. Okay. The next person in the queue is Hillary Northrup. Hillary Northrup, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Hillary Northrup?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for their very diligent presentations. And I'm just going to say, I think to redevelop the Woodmere Country Club property in the guise that the developers are proposing is short of criminal. I think as humanity needs to coexist with nature, and there isn't a lot of it around, and I walk every day, and my walk takes me down the road through alongside Woodmere Country Club. I live in Lawrence, by the way, through Woodsburg, and I come back and meet lots of people along the way. And it is to have that acreage with the nature that is there. We should be preserving it and coexisting. So I just want to thank everyone for all their efforts, and I think the Coastal Conservation Group idea is the one to run with. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. And just a reminder to everyone who is in the queue, we have turned on the function where if you do want to speak, you can click the button to raise your hand and we'll see that on the screen, but we will continue to call everyone who is in the queue just to make sure we cover everyone. The next person is Jacob Gill. Jacob, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Jacob Gill. Okay. The next person in the queue is Jeffrey Schreiber. Jeffrey, if you'd like to speak, go ahead. Okay. The next person in the queue is Jonathan Mizrahi. Jonathan, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to...
Jonathan,
can you hear me?
If you could just give us, yes, if you could please just give us your name and your address, please.
Sure. It's Jonathan Mizrahi, 5 Manor Lane in Woodsburg. I live approximately 1 block off of the Woodmere Golf Course. And first, I'd like to thank everyone today. Thank the Village of Woodsburg, the Village of Lawrence, and the Town of Hempstead for getting together and doing this plan together. I'd like to first formally support the proposed plan. I think it's well thought out and well done, and it's something that the town would be behind, and it's a lot more reasonable than what the owner of the land has proposed. From someone who lives nearby, I think it's important to give some real life on what happens when it rains. As someone who has a house 1 block away with a basement that has 4 sump pumps and a backyard that floods regularly whenever it rains, I think additional building would be detrimental to the neighborhood. I've lost a car to flooding in a storm. It's the insurance premiums that would go up around here is something that's significant, and it's a real hazard. The second item that has been brought up by Cameron Engineering's report is the traffic. I think my children who are on a bus traveling to school, they can be on that bus in the winter or in the summer for 20 minutes, 30 minutes for 2 miles. I can't imagine what the additional traffic would do. And on Fridays or Sundays when the traffic is a little higher, it would be even worse. I think what has been proposed is very reasonable and something that I think not only I support but everyone would be behind. So again, thank you all for the proposal, and as a community member, just know that we support this completely.
Thank you very much, sir. And again, just for the benefit of the village board, so they have it for their record, the moderator is Richard Regina, counsel to the town board, myself. And I'll just remember everyone in the queue who's going to speak, please start with your name and your address. All right. The next person in our queue is Jeffrey Schreiber. Jeffrey, please go ahead if you'd like to speak. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Jeffrey, I apologize for calling you again. I think the next person in our queue is Judah. I don't know if it's Leiden or Libin. Judah, go ahead if you'd like to speak. Judah. The next person in the queue is Karen Apple. Karen, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Okay, Karen. Okay, and the next person has their hand up using the webinar, so that's appreciated. It is Lee Bienstock. Lee, if you could please start with your name and address.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name is Lee Bienstock. I live at 50 Meadow Drive in Woodmere. First off, I'd just like to thank the Village of Woodsburg, the Village of Lawrence, the Town of Hempstead, as was mentioned by many, for getting together and doing doing the study, the very thoughtful studies, and putting together this very thoughtful proposal that has been in discussion now. Obviously, there's been talks about this for quite some time, so we appreciate all the time taken, the thoughtfulness put into the proposals. Anyone that lives near the Woodmere Club or in the surrounding areas can plainly see that this property should not be developed the way the developers are proposing. The golf course floods just with a modest rain. There are no parking spaces by the train stations. It takes, as was mentioned by the previous callers, it takes the kids over 30 minutes to get to school, less than 2 miles away, through the congestion on Broadway and Peninsula and the many, many other arteries that run through this area. So we are very much in support. There are many, many groups being rallied around this. I can mention there's thousands of supporters on many of the petitions that we've put together. There's many, many, many folks on all the social media pages that are very supportive, and we just appreciate the town and the village and the villages getting together to give this the thought and give this the support that many, if not the vast majority of families and those in the community really would support this proposal. So we thank you for all your efforts.
Okay, thank you, Lee. The next person in our queue is Lois Lustig. Lois, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Lois, would you like to speak? Okay. The next person in our queue is Lori Lundenberg. Lori, would you like to speak? Lori, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Okay. The next person in our queue is Marion David. Marion, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Marion? Marion, would you like to speak? Okay. The next person in our queue is Mario Joseph. Mario, if you'd like to speak,
Yes,
please
hi.
go ahead.
I just want to make sure you can hear me.
We can. Mario, could you start with your name and address for us?
Sure. Mario Joseph. I live at 80 Meadow Drive in Woodsburg. I'm participating in the hearing as the former president of the Five-Town Civic Association and also a 21-year resident of the village of Woodsburg. My house literally overlooks the Woodmere Club and the golf course. And I wanted to share 3 observations with you. One goes back to Superstorm Sandy. I watched from my front door and later from the balcony, the waters rushing in over the golf course and literally waves hitting the side of my house. I lost 3 cars. There was property damage. There was flooding in the basement of my home. And I was lucky because my neighbors had water coming in through their windows, through their front door. Some neighbors had boats from the nearby marina wash up on their front yard. Now, what was interesting was that within about 48 hours, and even less than that really, the water receded. Where did the water go? You literally saw the water go into the ground across the street. It was terribly muddy. It was wet for a very, very long time. But that's where the water went. We are very fortunate to have 100+ acres worth of green sponge across the street. In looking at the proposed coastal conservation district and having heard the Cameron Engineering presentation, it's clear that 83.8 acres, or 70% of the property, is going to be preserved as a big green sponge. I hate saying it quite that way. It sounds almost comical, but it's true. We live very close to the water. It's not just Superstorm Sandy. As Mr. Beanstalk just down the block from me mentioned a moment ago, anytime it rains, there's flooding. And not just a little bit of flooding to the point where you need a 4-wheel vehicle, lifted, to drive through certain streets because that's how deep the water is. So that's one observation. Another observation really goes back over the past 3 months. During this COVID period, I would sit on my balcony and I would watch people walk around the Woodmere course, the Woodmere Club. Now, I want to explain, in my mind, it's not just coexisting with nature. It's literally being at peace because we are surrounded by nature. People needed a break. And when they finally did get out of their homes and they wanted some kind of normalcy in their life, they couldn't go to the office. They couldn't go and socialize. They went for walks around a beautiful open area. That beautiful open area is a rarity, not just in New York generally, where I would be referring to within driving distance or train distance to Manhattan, but in the 5 towns. There's nothing like it in Woodmere, and there's certainly nothing like that in Woodsburg. It should be preserved. And the third observation is related to the quality of life. It falls more into a category of safety. And that's the eventuality that life is going to be challenged. First responders, as it is, have a difficult time getting through the arteries around the 5 towns. If you had to call Hatzalah or the ambulance and wait during rush hour for an emergency response, you would unfortunately have to wait much longer than you would have to in many other neighborhoods. I can't explain why. I don't have to explain why. I can just tell you it's the case. And it requires willful blindness by the developers to say that the addition of 100 plus, in this case, 200 plus homes wouldn't be a profound danger to people in the community, young and old alike. I applaud, and I'm so grateful to the municipalities and to everyone involved for working together. I read in the study the term the intermunicipal coordinated design, and that's exactly what this is. In my opinion, it seems that this isn't just an intermunicipal, as in good government working together, but it's also inter-neighborhood. We have 5 towns all working together. We're represented by very hands-on and very, I think, in-tuned elected representatives. And so I'm full of gratitude, and I want to relay that and say, really, thank you so much. I believe that history will look very, very favorably on you for preserving the character and beauty, safety, and functionality of the 5 towns. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. The next person in our queue is Mark Lorberbaum. Mark Lorberbaum, go ahead if you want to speak. Mark Lorberbaum. Okay. And just a reminder to everyone in our queue, if you do want to speak, we do encourage you to exercise the option to raise your hand on the GoToWebinar app. The next person in our queue is Marty Penstein. Marty, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Marty? The next person in our queue is Michael Kerr. Michael, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Michael Kerr?
Yes, I would like to speak. Michael Kerr
Michael Kerr, go ahead.
Yes, 76 Wood Lane. I moved into this community in 1982. And I did so because it's a very quiet community. But there's a lot of transient traffic that moves through this community. And if you're walking the streets, it can be very dangerous out there. And people do walk the streets, not just on the Sabbath, but in general. Having a green area, a place where we can walk safely, is a big plus to a small community that has winding roads and poor views as you travel through the area. Second, I'm redoing my driveway, not making any changes to what I did in 1982, but I'm repaving it. And I'm required to put in drains to catch as much of the runoff water from the hard surface on the driveway in order to protect the streets. That's a problem, not for me, but that's a problem in our community. Water accumulates quickly and it has no place to go. So creating hard surfaces, a majority of hard surfaces on that green belt, would be a serious problem to the community. So I support the decision by the town as well as the villages to try and preserve that area as a green belt and reduce the number of homes that could be developed in that area. Thank you very much.
Okay, Michael Kerr, thank you. The next person in our queue is Miles Arbor. Miles, go ahead, please, if you'd like to speak. Miles?
I recently moved back to this area from living out of state for about 20 years, and there is something special about it. and it's obvious to me now that I'm here again. There are 5 suburban areas that I think are especially nice surrounding the city of New York, and the South Shore of Nassau County is one of those. And the 5 towns are favored within that. One of the things that makes this area so nice to live in is the beauty of the surrounding area. To walk, to bike, to drive is peaceful, is pretty, is calming, and is serene. It would be a shame to see that spoiled and gone and taken away for good. There is something irreplaceable about the 5 towns and its landscaping and the lay of the land and the way the homes are set into it. And I would hate to see that be taken away for good simply because this golf club closed. I understand that the club couldn't sustain itself because of the changing demographics of the village, but I also think that we should do what we can to preserve the town the way it is. It's unique. It's unique the way it is and the way it has been as a favored spot. There are very, very few places in the surroundings of the city of New York that are like the 5 towns and as lovely as this is. So I'm simply asking you to do what you can to preserve it and to preserve that as part of the style of life here, and to maintain the loveliness of the area for all those who love that and who are drawn to it therefore. Please do your best to keep it as is and to prevent whole-scale development of the golf course. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. The next person in our queue is Nina Davids. Nina, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead.
Hi, Nina stepped away, but this is her husband, Mark. Is it okay if I speak?
Sure, just give us your name and address, sir.
Mark Davids, 332 West Ivy Hill Road. I'd like to thank both villages and Cameron Engineering and the town for being here and trying to have our backs. I hope to be as eloquent as the previous speakers. I'm just going to try my best. Having raised 2 children and living here for the last 20 years, my wife and I both worked. We invested in a house, we worked hard, we raised our kids here, and we both feel blindsided by this whole thing. Out of the blue, the club gets sold. People come in and decide to develop 200 houses. We don't know how that can happen. And change the whole landscape of the neighborhood that we invested our lives in. I just want to reiterate, I appreciate everything that you've done. And if you could please fight this with everything you have. I don't care if our taxes go up to fight it, but I don't think we can let this go through. I don't like being threatened. I resent the whole premise of the situation. I appreciate your time and I thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Davids. The next person in the queue is Ron Lundenberg. Ron Lundenberg, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Ron Lundenberg. The next person in our queue is Sarah Singer. Sarah, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Sarah Singer. All right. The next person is Sherry Bass. Sherry Bass, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Sherry Bass. I live at 306 Jordan Avenue in Woodmere. I do not live in Woodsburg. but I've been a resident of this area for many, many decades. And it's always been a wonderful opportunity for me to drive to the Woodmere Dock and to be able to walk around in the beautiful area of Woodsburg. Many, many years ago, I remember my parents telling me how the Long Island Railroad wanted to make elevated platforms when the new electric trains came out, and the area fought it. And as a result, the beauty of the area was maintained. People must fight for what they believe in. And there would be so many horrible ramifications if these people got their way and built all these homes. At the end of the day, Mr. Gertzberg and Mr. Weiss, I'm not sure, I think they live in New Jersey, but they would be going home, maybe to a nice community. They wouldn't have to live with the horrors of what's going to happen if they end up building 250 some odd houses. As many of the other people already mentioned, during this COVID era, many people were walking through Woodsburg and they found so much serenity and peace with the nature and the birds and just being in an area where they could have such a nice environment. That's one important thing. The most important thing, too, for me, I don't live in the Woodsburg area, but the traffic on Broadway, as was mentioned before, when the PowerPoint presentation by Cameron Engineering was presented, there would be 2,700 daily trips if all of these homes were built. I mean, this is a tremendous increase in the traffic. As was also already mentioned, there's no parking in Woodmere at the train station. I'm fortunate I can walk to the train station, but the parking spots are always filled. What's going to happen when there's 250 some odd more homes? Not to mention the fact that you cannot find parking in Woodmere during the height of the day. The parking lots are packed. After 10 a.m., you cannot find a parking space until maybe 3, 4 p.m. This is all going to get 100% worse if we allow those homes to be built. So I commend the Village of Woodsburg, the Village of Lawrence, the Town of Hempstead, and Cameron Engineering. I was so heartened to read in the Nassau Herald about this coastal conservation plan. I also urge you to fight it with everything that you can. As the other gentleman just said, if our taxes have to go up to fight the litigation or whatever comes our way, I think we all need to stand together and support this plan. And I thank you so much for coming up with it. I think it's a very well thought out plan. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person in the queue is Sylvia Trott. Sylvia Trott, would you like to speak? Sylvia Trott. The next person in the queue is Susan Sokol. Susan Sokol, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Susan Sokol. The next person in the queue is Suzanne Sirota Rosenberg. Suzanne Sirota Rosenberg, please go ahead. Suzanne, I have your hand up. Do you want to speak? Suzanne? All right. I'm going to try Suzanne one more time because her hand is still up. Suzanne, would you want to speak? Okay. Hope Greenberg, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead. Hope Greenberg? Okay. The next person in the queue is Kay Freifeld. Kay Freifeld, if you'd like to speak. Kay Freifeld?
Hello?
Kay Freifeld, do you want to speak? Yes,
can you hear me?
Your name and address for the record.
Karen
Please
Freifeld?
state your name and address for the record.
Yes, can you hear me? Karen Freifeld. 336 Argyle Road, Cedarhurst. I'm sorry I was late. I was working and missed the earlier part of the hearing, but I just wanted to say that, I've lived in this community. I was born in this community. I've been here my whole life. My mother taught in this community. It's changed a lot. In recent years, it's gotten a lot more crowded. Every house has, more children, and adding these homes just seems like it's complete overdevelopment that will make it much harder to do anything in the neighborhood. So I also just commend you guys coming up with this plan for the conservation, and I hope that it's something that will stick.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to try one more time because her hand is still in the air. Suzanne Sirota Rosenberg. Suzanne Sirota Rosenberg?
Yes, hello. This is Suzanne Sirota Rosenberg. I live at 881 Ivy Hill Road. I speak on behalf of my husband, Barry Rosenberg, and myself, and we have two practices in the neighborhood in Woodmere at 11 Irving Place and 1000 Broadway. I speak all in support of your proposal. As a practicing physician in the neighborhood, I have two significant concerns. I leave for St. John's Hospital, which is the closest hospital. I work there for 8 o'clock 2 mornings a week, Monday through Friday. The traffic for a 4-mile drive can take me sometimes 35 minutes. Since St. John's is the closest hospital, this is of significant concern to me, as is with the loss of other local hospitals, and even for patients to get to South Nassau, the other close hospital, to come through this significant increase in traffic is tremendous. I don't know if, from what I listened to, I don't think the school bus time in the morning starting at 6:30, 6:45 till 9 o'clock went into the study, traffic study, but it is significant. As a business owner in the neighborhood, which I have property that has 14 parking spots to it, there is minimal parking available. And we are about a half a mile, if not a quarter mile off of the Woodmere Club for our practices. I think this is a significant detriment to the neighborhood for response time, for evacuation time, if we allow a significant increase in home numbers. We are very much in support of the proposal that the villages and environmental impact studies have shown. So I thank you, and I hope you really look into the emergency access that we have locally as a significant barrier to going further with a larger amount of homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor, council members, mayors, and trustees, at this time, everyone in the GoToWebinar meeting's name has been called that is in the queue. And at this time, no one has clicked to raise their hand to speak. So at this time, I just want our records to reflect everyone's name has been called. Everyone's name was called a couple of times. They were all given a chance to speak.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to reflect the GoToWebinar. I do want to note that, for the record, the town of Hempstead has received hundreds of comments from the community. We're not going to read them, but they will be part of the public record, and we've also forwarded it to the villages as well for their record. Before I make the final motion, I want to thank all participants. I'd like to thank all the residents, and as well as the town board members and our partners in the villages and Cameron Engineering for this entire process. With that, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move the public hearing be closed, but the record be kept open until 4 p.m. on Wednesday, June 24th, 2020, to receive any other comments for the record, and that the decision be reserved. Supervisor, before I second, I just want to again thank the Village of Lawrence, the Village of Woodsburg. I want to thank our able counsel, Charles Kovic and Rich Regina. I want to thank our IT department, Artie Prim, for pulling this off. This was truly historic, and I really want to thank the people who took the time to participate in this hearing. I second the motion of Councilman D'Esposito.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Councilman
Aye.
Councilman Green. Councilman D'Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
I will now turn it over to the village of Lawrence is asking for 2 minutes. Their village attorney has asked if you can call Village of Woodsburg first. Absolutely. I will now turn it over to the Village of Woodsburg for any motion the mayor or trustees may wish to make.
Thank you, Supervisor. We're now going to entertain a motion to close the public hearing, subject to submission of any comments until Thursday, June 25th at 5 p.m. Do I have a motion? Harmon.
I second it, Carl Kane.
Okay, Michelle, please call the roll.
Mayor Lee Israel, Deputy Mayor Jake Harmon, Trustee Carl Kane,
Aye.
Trustee Barry Platnick,
Present.
Trustee Alan Herman,
Yes. Is your vote aye? Trustee
Aye.
Madnick? Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Aye. Okay. All right. Lawrence. You turn it back over to the Village of Lawrence, if you'd like.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. I'll turn it over to the Village of Lawrence for any motion the mayors or trustee of Lawrence may wish to make.
Yes, I would like to make the motion for the public hearing to be closed, but the record be kept open till 4 p.m. on June 25th to receive any other comments for the records and decision be reserved. Trustee Diamond, aye. Trustee Goldstein?
Aye.
I myself, aye.
Mayor, just for the record,
Motion is carried.
Was there a second on that?
The second to the motion was by Trustee Diamond, and all are in favor.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, before I make the final motion, I do want to say thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to all the mayors, the trustees, all your administration, the entire IT department here at the town, and the workforce, really for doing what is probably a first in this day with everything taking on. It's a real testament to governments working together. And with that, I have a motion to adjourn the Hempstead Town Board.
I move that the Hempstead Town Board adjourn. Second.
Madam Clerk.
Aye.
Councilman Boyd.
Aye.
Councilman Caridi.
Aye.
Councilman Montanaro.
We will now turn it over to the Village of Lawrence. For a motion to adjourn.
Second motion.
The motion is seconded.
By Trustee Goldstein.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carried.
We will now turn it over to the Village of Woodburg for a motion to adjourn.
Village of Woodsburg, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Alan Hermes will second. I'll make the motion.
Second, anyone?
Second. Carl Kane.
All in favor, Michelle, call the roll, or say aye.
Aye.
Mayor Lee Israel,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Jake Harmon,
Aye.
Trustee Carl Kane,
Aye.
Trustee Barry Platnick,
Aye.
Trustee Alan Hermes.
Aye.
Okay.
I thank everybody. I thank all of our participants, and everybody remain safe, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good job, guys. Good job.
Thank you.